Hello, my name is John Ortega. I am going to be presenting work today by uh, three of us from different institutions. Um, Two more people, Richard Castro Mamini and Jaime Rafael Montoya Samami, are included in this work. Um, we are going to be talking about a language here on the map in the red area in South America. And the title of our paper is The Overcoming Resistance, the Normalization of an Amazonian Tribal Language. So today I'm going to be talking about the language, and I'm going to first give us some background and history, and then I'm going to cover its morphology and alphabet. I will talk about some of the other work that is related on languages that occur in the same area. I will also talk about our technique called Ashmorph. I will give some results and then talk about some of the potential future work that we will be working on. First and foremost, I'd like to give a little bit of background and history. In South America, there are hundreds or maybe even thousands of low resource languages. A lot of the languages are already endangered, and UNESCO has considered a lot of them endangered or even extinct. Ashanika, the language covered in this presentation, is a language native to Peru and Brazil. The green area on the map, which is not far from a town in Peru that I descend from, is where mostly Ashanika is spoken. It's interesting to note that Ashanika, with the A, has an accent over it, as opposed to the anglicized version, Ashaninka, which does not have an accent. Ashanika, its word originally coming from the native version, is known as a low resource language. And it's known as low resource because of the lack of digital context. This place is close to the mountainous area in between Brazil and Peru, and there are about 30,000 truly native speakers left, and about 70,000 total speakers. Other languages in the orange area, like Quechua, have much higher resources and are even spoken by millions. Pan-Ashanika is the combination of all the Ashanika dialects, which nearly measures in the hundreds. The Ashanika extend over territory that includes Brazil, Peru, covering several rivers and mountains. The biggest majority live in Peru, while a lot of them have migrated to Brazil due to latex collectors in the 19th century. They are considered as one of the biggest tribes in Peru, native to the Amazons. They have been called several names over time, but they are mostly known for being Campa. They are known to be less friendly and somewhat resistant to outsiders, as one could imagine over time. Time being since the 16th century, when missionaries came from the colonial period. There are really two time periods: the time when the Brancos, or Blancos in Spanish, or whites in English, came, and then the time after. The history did not bring or begin with the European arrival. The presence of Ashanika diminished over time, as did their customs like clothes and, more importantly, language. They were highly discriminated against because of their language, and to this day are discriminated against by other Spanish speaking and Quechua speaking neighbors. They have gone through a rubber economy when latex was needed, and now the logging economy, while others are in search of wood. As with many other tribes, a lot of them were killed when exposed to new and deadly diseases after coming in contact with the Broncos. As our final test corpora is based on the Bible, I'm going to play an excerpt from the Bible spoken in Ashanika. Please pay attention to the emphasis and difference in words that you hear. Most of us have heard Spanish at some point in our life. Can you imagine how hard Ashanika would be to translate to Spanish or Portuguese? The disambiguation task alone takes time, and it is one of the main proposals of our work, creating input that can be translated, not the translations themselves. Here is the recording.
Tireniri. The Parable of the Prodigal Son.
Pashini aisati shiakanti niri Jesoshi.
Itimi shirampari itomi apite. Yora impoi tatsiri itimi. Ikantiri iriri. Apa. No koake pishinetenaro na yero tamaroni nuvararo. Aisati maroni no irekte. Pimpenaro me kamaroni. Ari ipahei takeri. Pashini kitaitiri yapato hei takeri.
The earliest known alphabetical tagging efforts were by David Payne in 1981. He basically made three main types of morphological sets based on nouns, verbs, and adverbs. The original idea was to gather the dialects and normalize them into one main alphabet. Later, in 2010, Elena Mijas took more interest in modeling other parts of speech, which included pronouns, adjectives, and more low-level anomalies. One of the challenges of normalizing the alphabet was the pronunciation and the mixing of the high-resource languages like Quechua and Spanish. Consonants like CU, KW, QU, which are written in several words from Quechua or Spanish, had to be normalized to one consonant, the KW consonant. Our work depends on the work from Mijas, and we use it as a determiner for creating rules discussed later. Ashanika is polysynthetic and agglutinative. Pan-Ashanika dialects exist, and maybe in the hundreds. The current alphabet is Ashanika Epureni by Elena Mijas, which is the normalization. And the language itself typically inflects on noun and verb agreement, and that is done with gender. And then also we also I've noticed that it combines several stems to make one semantic meaning. Pei, for example, is one of the suffixes where we can see the word koya is done there, along with Aparoni koya, and then koya pei, which is greater than one or more than one entity, is koya pei, woman. Other work is quite more plentiful in the sense that Quechua has been attempted to translate via Spanish, so Quechua to Spanish systems exist, and they're quite plentiful, such as the work here from myself as well. One of the entries that we are now seeing is the spill from Quechua and Spanish into Ashanika, because words like kuruka, which basically mean chief, end up showing up in the language as well. Some of the systems that we will be comparing against are byte pair encoding, statistical Viterbi, and byte pair with a unigram model. And then other systems that do something similar are finite state transducers, for example, with Quechua and Apertium. And lastly, there's the part of speech tagging system, which is based really on the Czech language, but often used by several Peruvian languages that we will also discuss. So now I'm going to present Ashmorph, which is a combination of three different entities or approaches, and we will see how they are combined. First, there's alphabetical normalization, then there's morphological disambiguation, and finally a tagging system. Additionally, in Ashmorph, we present new annotations by a near-native speaker and a corpora developed and tested. All of this is online publicly. The alphabetical normalization is very similar and done using Ashaninka Perini, which was from Elena Mijas' work. We there take the several works that we have in our corpora mentioned later from Panashaninka or Ashanika to one Ashaninka type. As you can see here, there's 3 different forms of a word based on dialect. We normalize that to one word using the alphabet given by Mijas. The cross-referencing also from the morphological normalization is something that we try to handle using Ashmorph. So cross-referencing is illustrated here, where the subject Aprenini, Ashaninka, meaning one man, is masculine, and its corresponding verbs prefix, the first letter I and I sek I tabatsi ats I ro, is also masculine. This cross-referencing is furthermore replicated in the direct object of the sentence. That means that not only do we see gender agreement and the corresponding verb, but we also see the gender-based dependency between the object of the sentence. We take these rules along with the alphabetical rules and create morphological normalizations using FST, which is based on previous work from Annette Rios in 2016 on Quechua. So our grammatical tagging ends up becoming a combination of part of speech and vocabulary. The Tagset system was actually based on Halavikova, 2017's work. We found that this was used time and time again with different Peruvian low-resource languages. Here we also separate punctuation. Proper names or numbers are treated as non-dependent chunks. Vocabulary is included inside of our FST rule. And we actually end up with an eagle output. Eagle is one of the standards for FST output, especially from the work that we've seen. So we've used lemma tags, we use lemmas to first do deep tagging and then categorize using a category value system based on the different rules that we've created and learned using a near native Ashanika speaker. Finally, the output ends up becoming a set of several categories, and what we will see, and I think I do this in the Common Nice, is here on the next slide. The output of Ashmorph is a combination of alphabetical and morphological normalization that produces a readable tag set that explains the POS, the morphology, and the grammatical construct for each of the words. It allows us to separate each word from the Ashanika input into parsed informational chunks. It's a combined normalization system. Our corpora is rare corpora, not often, or actually has probably never been used for high-level MT tests. Our dev and test were different domains, so dev was stories and different drawings, and Bible ended up being from Opus. So our dev was 745 sentences, which had 2,389 unique words, and 50 were randomly selected sentences for evaluation by a near-native Ashanika speaker. Evaluations were done by first providing the evaluator with output, which contained several sub-segments marked by our system. Rules were modified based on the evaluation in order to fine-tune Ashmorph during development and help the system to gain the optimal results. Our test set ended up being 50 sentences as well to modify or be evaluated by the speaker. Our results during dev, since these were all on localized story plays and educational text, we saw quite good results of 59%, between 37 and 59% comparing to the statistical systems. Our accuracy, true positive and false negative rates were explained in the paper as well. the accuracy, more importantly, were those subsegments where there were complete agreement between Ashmorph and Ashanika reviewer. Final results on the test set and the biblical text from Opus. It went down a little bit because of the new words, out of vocabulary words, reduced performance due to the new domain. We saw that still we were 26% to 44% better than the statistical systems. So we have overcome initial resistance. We think that the sky's the limit and that we could introduce unsupervised techniques, potentially tune hyperparameters on the supervised ones we have, and try out other machine translation systems, such as and techniques such as back translation or zero-shot translation, and introduce more native speakers. I'd like to thank you again. Here are our names and affiliations. Thank you.